My name is Michelle, and I'm from Toledo. I have 28 years in recovery from several substances. Um, Today, I am a mother, I am a grandmother, I am a professional, and I am an advocate for recovery.
Well, thanks so much for coming out and joining us. We really appreciate it. If you could start off by sharing a bit about your childhood.
I grew up in a very strange environment. My mom and dad separated when I was young, and we lived with my mom for a while, and she had mental health and substance abuse. And so my dad took custody of us, and we lived a couple different places. I was raised in Detroit and then graduated from a high school in Sterling Heights, Michigan.
Okay. Were you an only child?
No, I have a sibling. I have a brother. Unfortunately, he's still struggling, but doesn't know he's struggling.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So,
And how was things like school for you, friends, growing up?
if I could go back and do it all again, I'd start from the 6th grade. Just kind of a misfit, didn't quite know which group I belonged to, and so I kind of hung out with anybody that was available. And so that's when I started drinking and smoking marijuana, which never really caught on with me. It was, when I was introduced in high school to cocaine that really kind of set off my addiction.
How did your disease progress?
Well, I was 17, and I had graduated from school that previous May. So I had started school younger and finished younger, and so I was working a job and worked with primarily adults that already had bad habits, and so they were doing cocaine and other things. And so I approached my parents one day, my stepmother and my father, and said, I need help. And I was 17 at the time, and so my dad had really good insurance with General Motors, and so they found me an adolescent program in Toledo. That's how I ended up in Toledo. And of course, his insurance covered 52 days instead of 30 days.
Yeah, that's unheard of a lot of times, so that's pretty fantastic.
So I met a guy in treatment, the old treatment romance story.
Right. Yep.
And started dating and moved in together 6 months after I got sober, clean.
Mm-hmm.
And within 3 days, I had started drinking and smoking.
Gotcha.
So we ended up getting married, having 2 children. Domestic violence was just rampant, on a weekly basis, whether I provoked or he perceived I provoked, or so I did that for another 10 years. So we were together 12 years altogether. One day I woke up, I was assigned a program through welfare. It was called Displaced Homemakers. And so he tried not to make me go, and I really pushed to go to this program. So they had set up daycare and everything. And I went to this program and did an aptitude and interest testing. And when I finished that test, it said that I was supposed to be an electrical engineer. Never in my dreams. It was always I was going to be a secretary, right? That was the thing back then.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just totally amazed. It just blew me away. Now, every night I'm home getting drunk and doing cocaine and getting up in the morning and going to this class come hell or high water.
Mm-hmm.
So on the day we graduated from that class, I asked one of my classmates to pick me up from my home and take me to the battered women's shelter. And so she came by. I had half of a garbage bag full of clothes for me and the 2 kids. We picked the kids up from school, and I headed to the battered women's shelter. I'd been there 7 times before.
Okay.
But I was done with him, and I was done with the drinking on the same day. I wouldn't say unfortunately, I did have a drink after that, and that was on my birthday. So my sobriety date is the day after my birthday. But when I was living in the shelter, they discovered I had been drinking the night before and kicked me out and the kids. And I didn't have anywhere to go. And it was like the lowest point in my life right there. So I begged and pleaded for them to let me back in. And so I was one day out of the shelter. They let me back in under a contract. So I was grounded, first woman ever grounded to the battered women's shelter floor. And I had to go to meetings, recovery meetings.
So you go from the battered women's shelter to, were you living in the battered women's shelter and going to treatment at the same time initially?
I did.
Okay.
And then they didn't send me, they offered me the opportunity to go to a long-term shelter.
Okay.
Called the Bethany House. And I will plug them every day, all day. I stayed there 9 months. It was in an old convent home, and my room was on the 3rd floor, no elevators, so,
get up and down with 2 kids.
Yeah, but it was the first time they had their own bedroom in their lifetime. So we each had our own bedroom, and I continued to go to meetings. I continued working on, improving my skills as a professional. Just the things that I've experienced sober have like this gigantic meaning for everything.
Yeah.
My first house, my first boat ride, my first, going to school, everything was a first when I got to recovery.
Absolutely. Well, life really opens up. There's possibilities once, you make a lot of those changes. So what do you do today to maintain your mental, physical, and spiritual health in recovery?
I am a big believer in meditation and prayer. And that's a morning ritual for me while I'm having coffee and letting the dogs out and, just kind of sitting there by myself and just kind of reflecting. I have this thing that happens in my head. Well, there's a lot of things that happen in my head. But there's this voice that just says every morning, I love you. And I hear it in my head, and at one point I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm just telling myself good affirmations, right? But it's so consistent and it's so loud that it comes from a power greater than myself. That I'm just told that every day. I hear it every morning without my permission. It just pops in there. And I know he's listening, and I know, he's guiding me. I still go to meetings. I go to meetings anywhere from 3 to 5 times a week. And I found this really great meeting at 7:45 in the morning.
Wow, it's early.
It is early, but it starts my day off perfectly. Just the people and the conversation and the reminders, one day at a time is so huge that people can bypass it and just say, oh yeah, one day at a time, yeah. Right. But it has significant meaning. When you're anxious about something, when something doesn't go right in your life, when something crops up and you're baffled, right? It's just one day at a time. It's not going to be like this tomorrow.
Yes, absolutely. So what have you learned about yourself from your addiction and from your recovery?
I'm a pretty special kind of person. I walked into work the other day, and it just kind of hit me out of the blue, and I was talking to one of the management, and I just turned and said to her, I'm the shit, right? Right? And so it just came out of my mouth. It's like, okay, so I've done some pretty good stuff, right? And it's not an egotistical, I'm not above the law, I'm not above recovery, I'm not above anything else. But what I've learned about me is that I have a set of characteristics that has developed in me over time, that I live the way that God wants me to live. And like I said, it's not egotism. It's not. Humility is one of my favorite words in the whole wide world, and I practice it regularly. But there's just a certain way God made me that the world sees light.
And I think it sounds, some of what you're describing is that actual self-confidence and knowing your self-worth, which is, really only found once people are healthy and that they're getting well or have gotten well, and being able to experience that is pretty fantastic. Could you share some inspiration or words of hope that have spoken true to you when you've been struggling?
Well, that's a thoughtful question. I think the one that resonates most with me is one day at a time. Whether it's cliche or not, it's so profound to me that, I've met adversity in recovery. I've had deaths in recovery. I've filed bankruptcy in recovery. And that feeling just doesn't last a long time when I view it as one day at a time. Tomorrow it's going to be different. Something's going to come along. God's going to make sure that, I'm okay. Even if I'm back living in a shelter, I'm still going to be okay.
You definitely are a person that resonates that sense of peace and really just gratitude for the life that you have today, and that's something that really we only see with for those of us with substance use disorders, for people that take action and are continuously working a program.
Absolutely. Have to work the program. As hard as that is some days.
That's for sure. So is there anything that we missed that you would like to talk about?
I don't think so.
Well, thank you so much for coming out and joining us. Your story is incredible, and really just showing that where really being in the depths of despair and being able to have those having those people come into your life at different times, and having that willingness to take action, and being able to see really what life has to offer, and the miracle that you are today.
I'm so excited for the future. It's just amazing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.